What is up, guys? It's Flawless here, and in today's video I'll be making my long-awaited return here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for the support in the past. We are bringing it back for 2024. I know it's a late start, but I've got a ton of videos planned, and if you're excited, please consider subscribing so you see those when they come out. We are doing something today that I haven't ever done before, but I'm sure you've seen other people do it. We are making a world tier list here on Wizard101. I've played through this entire game multiple times, so I thought it would be fun to just rank all the worlds and see how I compare to you guys. Feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments. Obviously it's an opinion thing, so if you disagree, no hard feelings. I'm sure we won't have the same tier list, but it'll be interesting to see what you guys think. So leave any comments below if you have any suggestions for my tier list or what you think is the best world in the game, and we'll get into it right away. We are starting here in Wizard City, which I'm sure every one of you has made some memories here. It's the first world in the game. It's the only world with a bazaar. It's where you go to Unicorn Way and defeat the dark sprites and the skeletons for the first time. I think overall it's a great world. It does its job well as a first world. Over here on the tier list you can see we've got all the worlds, and I think it's only fair we throw Wizard City in S tier. I'm sure you guys will disagree with a lot of stuff I put on this list, but I don't think any of you will put Wizard City any lower than an A. We are back here now in Krokotopia, the second world in the game. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this world too. I personally love certain areas of this world, such as the Pyramid of the Sun. Tomb of Storms and the Crocosphinx aren't as much fun in my opinion, but I was so excited when I made it here for the first time. It's where you first get your power pips, where you first fight two enemies at once, and I really do enjoy this world. It's one of my favorites. Very nostalgic. I love the music. So let's go give it a place on the tier list. I think it's between S and A for me. I don't think it's quite as good as Wizard City because it's not as well rounded. So I think I'm going to throw it in A tier. Next off we have Marleybone, which, a hot take, is my favorite world in the game. So that pretty much spoils where I'm going to put it. But I just love the whole theme of this world. I love the architecture, I love the night sky, the balloons. I think Big Ben's a really interesting idea for a final dungeon. And it's also pretty painless and quick to quest through. I mean, Big Ben is a challenge, yeah, but I think overall the world's pretty quick. It's not as painful as some of the other worlds to quest through. It's got a lot of diversity in areas. So let's give it the ranking I think it deserves, S tier. I know some of you are probably going to argue that, but that's why this is an opinion thing. Next on the list we are here in Mushu, which is another interesting world. It has the final boss of the Jade Oni, which is a little more difficult than the previous worlds in my opinion, or at least it was until they nerfed it. But overall, it's a very interesting world. I love the layout of it. I love that it splits into two halves. It's probably not one of my favorites in this arc. So for that reason, we are going to throw it over here in B tier if I can find it. Where is Mushu? I am completely blind. It is right here. Again, it's a decent world. I have no real complaints with it. It's just not one of my personal favorites. Next off, we have Dragonspire, another very iconic world. It's where you fight the first ever final boss of the game, Malastare. It's where the Arc 1 storyline comes to an end. Again, I think it's such an interesting world. Obviously, you've got the Myth Professor taking you through the destroyed world. And I think it's such a fun journey to finally get up to Malastare and eventually kill him. Or at least, I hope most of you kill them. So let's head over here and put it in its deserved spot as an A tier world. I really do think that Celestia here is the perfect start of Arc 2. We get new parts of the game such as Critical, and it really does feel like a new beginning. I love the whole idea of it being underwater. I love the dungeons over here in the middle, and it's a world that's really big on puzzles, which the game I really don't think has too many good ones up until this world. But in the final dungeon, the Trial of Spheres over here, there are so many fun puzzles to do, and I think overall, it's just a really good world. I think for this reason, it's going to go up with Dragonspire and Krokotopia here in the A tier. Next, we are moving on to the wonderful world of Zafaria, another world I think that has a lot of diversity to it, which does help it out. And you can see on the map, some of the areas include Waterfront and Stone Town. You've got Zamunda, you've got Elven Graveyard and Drum Jungle, and you also have the great final dungeon of Mirror Lake. I've farmed this dungeon hundreds of times for gear and pet snacks. I think it's a great dungeon. Overall, it's a solid world. If you didn't know, they took the animal sounds actually live. They went on a safari and they filmed the sounds for this world, which I think is a very interesting fact. I know they posted a YouTube video about it if you wanted to go check it out. But overall, it's a solid world. I don't think by any means it's one of the best worlds in the game, but overall it's pretty solid. I'm going to give it a B tier. We are here in Avalon, the world based on the old knights. I think this is another solid world. I love the green landscape and the castles. I think Jabberwock's a fun boss to fight. And then I love when you get to go back in time and fight as Morganth. And again, kill the black and white dragons. It's a fun world. Again, I think it's up there on Arc 2 for one of the better worlds. I think we are going to give it a solid tier here in B as well, along with the previous world, Safaria. Now we are here in Azteca, where you fight Malastare for the second time and encounter Morganth. I think this is a really fun world. You come to a planet full of dinosaurs to save a giant meteor from hitting them, and getting to the end of it is so fun. I have a personal bias for this world, as this was the max world when I started playing back in 2012, and I was so excited to beat the game at that point, which was here. This is where you beat the game at that time, and I think it's a great world, and I think the final dungeon is one of the best in the game. I'm sure I'm a little biased, but I think this world has to go A tier for me. I love the theme, and I love the final boss. We are here in Chrysalis now, which is the longest world in the game, and for that reason I'm going to have to dock it some points. I think there's a lot of fun parts of this world, it has good music and a nice theme, but this world is just far too long for me to put too high up on the list. I think there's just too many quests that are repetitive, there's not much variety in gameplay for a lot of it until you get towards the end. I do think areas like the Hive are a lot of fun, but overall there's just so many areas where you're doing the same thing, defeating collect quests, so overall I will be docking at some points for that. Here on the tier list, now this might be controversial, maybe not, but this will be the first C tier world I'm throwing on my list. We are now here in the freezing cold world that is Polaris. I really think they named this world well, obviously, it's cold, Polaris, but besides that, it's one of my favorite worlds. It is so quick to quest through if you have good stats. It's a fun world, you get to be a ballet dancer for a point, you get to fight the Baba Yaga. I think it's a lot of fun. I like the snowy theme, I like how quick it is to quest through like Marleybone, it doesn't take you that long. It's pretty painless and it's a nice world. I think it deserves its spot up here in the A tier. The next world we have on the list is Mirage, another very cool world, desert themed, and I think it's a lot of fun. Obviously having these portals are cool. Some of my favorite areas of this world include Agrabah and the area down here, Istamboa. I think it's an overall pretty fun world. There's a decent amount of variety in scenery. It's a solid world for questing, it's not too long, not too short. So that's why I think it's a decently middle class world, which is why I'm going to throw it in the B tier. Next we are here in Imperia, one of my favorite worlds later in the game, and I will give you my justification why. I think the rollout for this world was so nice. I love the idea of the giant ship that crashes here. There's a bunch of Star Trek references if you're a fan of that. And just waiting for both parts of the world was so much fun. I mean, this is a two-part world with a lot of time in between, but I was excited when part 1 came out, and I was excited when part 2 came out. You've got a lot of areas to go, you've got the jungle, you have these aeroplanes, which are some of the most aesthetically pleasing areas in the entire game in my opinion. I just think there's just so much nice variety here, and I think it's one of the last great worlds that they released here on Wizard101, which is sad. But I really do love this world, and for that reason, if I can find it on this tier list, we are going to throw it up in the A tier. Next we have one of the lowest points of this game, in my opinion, which is Caramel. This is the world that came out during a COVID year, so everyone had so much free time and it would have been great if they put out like a perfect world, but I'm really just not the biggest fan of this place. It's super repetitive, you're fighting literal gummy bears and candies as opposed to like actually interesting enemies, and I feel like compared to the past, there's just not as much to do. I mean, you're fighting what, like a little bit of a dictator in a candy world, as opposed to like Malistaire who wants to destroy the planet, Morganth who wants to destroy the planet. I don't know, I just feel like there's not much of a cause here, and you're not really fighting much besides like candy. So I think this is the only world in the game that I will probably be putting here, but we are putting it in the G tier. Next we are here in Lemuria, which I think King's Isle took a big step up from Caramel. I really did enjoy this world when I played it through for the first time. You've got some very interesting, nice looking areas like Ursai Village, Heap, Sky City. I think there's just so many different themes. You have references to like Celestia, Mirage. I just think it's a nice world with a lot of variety. I think the Hall of Heroes at the end of this world is a lot of fun to do. So I think it's a big step up, and for that reason, we are going to be throwing it in the B tier. Next we're here in one of the most recent worlds, here in Novus. It's a decent world. I'm not a huge fan of the theme and the boss being Desane, who was like the nothing. I just think it's different. Again, I like the idea of supervillains like Morganth and Malistaire more. This seems more like an inner battle. It's an interesting one. I do like that there are the 4 regions. You've got the Polaris Penguin region, you've got the Fiery region, you've got the Marleybone themed region, and you have the Valencia and Monquista region in Puerto Nuevo. So overall, it's definitely not the worst world in the game. It's not Caramel, but I'm really not that big of a fan of this world, and for that reason, we will be throwing it in the C tier. We are now up to the most present world in the storyline, which is Wallaroo. I was really excited for this world to come out, but I wasn't per se the biggest fan of it. It didn't quite meet my expectations. It's not a terrible world by any means. I just don't think it has much memorable in my eyes. I don't have any real good memories in this world. There was no boss that I really enjoyed fighting, nothing like that. So it's definitely not the worst world in the game. Obviously Caramel is going to be by itself, but I think it's a C tier along with a couple other worlds in this arc. We are now here in the first side world per se, which is Grizzleheim. Again, I love this world. It's just so sad that it's not part of the main quest line, as you can really put it off till late. Not all the spells you get from it are very good, but I will rank it decently high just because I love the theme of it. I love the idea of the Winter Tusk and the icy area too. I love the music. I remember the Nick Jonas collab over here. Overall, it's a solid world. Again, there's not too much usefulness to it, but it's a lot of fun to play through, and I think it's a pretty good world. I am going to rank it up in A. It's honestly, it could be an S tier world if it was in the storyline and actually rewarding. Next, we are here in Wisteria, a world that I'm in a real dilemma about where to rank. It's one of my favorite worlds in the game. It's got, in my opinion, some of the best music in the game. It's got its own version of every school here. There's a tournament where you fight to win the Spiral Cup. It's got its own gauntlet, which I have and have enjoyed doing. And it's got the Tower of the Elephant, which was a really fun and challenging dungeon to do when it was new. The only issue with this world is it's a side world. You get pretty much nothing for doing it, and I'm sure a lot of people have skipped it once they've already played it through, which is sad, because in my opinion this would easily be an S tier world if it was rewarding, because it's pretty painless to go through, it's quick, and it's a lot of fun. I really do enjoy this world. I don't think I can put it S tier because you don't get much out of it, and its replay value isn't that good because you're not really getting anything. But I will give it A because I love the music and I love the theme. Now we're in Aquila, an area I have a lot of mixed feelings about. There's a lot of good about this world, but also a lot of bad in my opinion. When I got here for the first time, right after the update came out, it was the most excited I've probably ever been in this game. I love the mythology, I love Mount Olympus. This is probably my favorite dungeon in the entire game, up there with Waterworks. It's got amazing gear for its level, It's not too painful to farm. I love the puzzles. I just think overall, it's a great area. It's worth doing. I do it on every wizard, and I enjoy it. My issues are when it comes over here, as you also have Tartarus for level 90 and Atlantia for level 70. Atlantia, I think, is just such a waste of time. It wasn't really fun for me to do, and I don't think there's any loot that's better than Waterworks. So for me, I don't even know if I've ever even beat it on a second wizard. It's really just not that fun in my opinion. Tartarus, again, is an interesting one. As you can see, I've never even done it on my storm, because it's just annoying. It's a lot of work, there's some tough battles, and I just feel like the drop rates are really low for it. I just think due to the fact of Atlantia and Tartarus bringing this area down, I will have to stick it down in A. It would be an easy S tier, like I said, if it was just Mount Olympus, and I think an A is probably still a generous rating considering those other two dungeons are not that much fun in my opinion. Next we have a compilation of 4 dungeons, which will make this a very interesting rating. I'll go through them all one by one. The first dungeon of the 4 is in Krakatopia, and it is Kumbalung Village for level 25 wizards. Then you've got the level 41 in Marleybone, Barkingham Palace. Then at level 60 you have Lower Zigzag and Upper Zigzag in Krakatopia as well. And then you've got here Castle Darkmoor, which is obviously the biggest of the 4. So one by one, I think the Krakatopia one is pretty pointless. Getting level 25 gear is really not worth it in my opinion when Mount Olympus gear is so much better. It's also just not that fun of a dungeon. Barkingham Palace is Marleybone themed, which I think is very nice considering it's my favorite world. But again, the drop rates are just so low there that you're better off sticking with Mount Olympus gear. Level 60 you've got Mount Zigzag, what am I saying? Just Zigzag, which has decent gear, and it is better than Waterworks on some schools. So that area I definitely enjoy. And then here, obviously the biggest one, Darkmoor for level 100 wizards. I think this is when the game was at its peak, when everyone had Darkmoor gear, Shadow Pips were pretty new. I think it was a great time for the game when this dungeon came out. I think it definitely bumps up the rank of those other 3. I think maybe Darkmoor is S tier, Zigzag is A tier, and the other 2 are maybe a C. But I just think Darkmoor did so much for this game that I think I'm going to have to put this in A. It's a great variety of dungeons. If only 2 of them are worth it, Darkmoor definitely brings up the ranking for me. We are here in the area for the last ranking of the tier list, which is the Wizard City Underground. You've got the drains and the catacombs, and this area is another one that I have mixed feelings about. It was very fun when it came out because of how challenging it was. There's a lot of bosses here that you need good strategy for, and you really needed a team that knew what they were doing, and it was very rewarding when you won. My only issue with this world is to get the best gear, you really needed to farm the same boss 50 times, so it really did get repetitive. Overall, everything was fun to play through once. I can't imagine myself going back here and doing it again, really. It was fun once. Overall, not bad. I just think a little too repetitive, the amount of times you had to farm to actually get the best gear. And for that reason, we're going to put it in B. Overall, a balanced world. Here is my complete tier list. We have Wizard City and Marleybone in S. For A tier, we have Krakatopia, Dragonspire, Celestia, Azteca, Polaris, Imperia, Grizzleheim, Wisteria, Mount Olympus, or Aquila, and the 4 dungeons. As you can see, I really like this game. There's a lot of A tier worlds. B tier, you've got Mushu, which might be a little harsh, but I'm not a fan of it that much. Safaria, Azteca, Mirage, Lemuria, I'm losing my words, and the last place, the Wizard City Underground. C tier, Chrysalis. Obviously it has some good moments, but it's just too long and it's so painful to quest through. You've got Novus, and you've got the newest world, Wallaroo. And then I think D tier, I think it's fair that Caramel's in there. So overall, that's my list. Feel free to let me know what you would do. I can post a link to this template. I did make it. If you want to make your own versions, go for it. And if you make a video, you can let me know in the comments if you made your own video on this, and I'll leave you a review. So if you want to do that, feel free. If you have video suggestions, let me know. I'm gonna try to get some content out there before the end of the year, a good amount of stuff. So let me know what you think. If you did enjoy this video, please like it and consider subscribing. Thank you guys for all your support, and I'll see you all later. Bye guys.